Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Power Chat. Hey, Michelle, how you doing? Good to see you. Good to see you. I'm glad everything went well with your surgery and you're on your path to recovery. Hello, Michael. Good to see you. Good to see you. Welcome to the Power Chat. I will be starting at 12. It's good to hear that you're doing good, Michelle. It's good to hear. Okay, I needed to share it. Welcome to the Power Chat. Hello, everyone. Before I get started, I always like to do an introduction for those that will watch the replay and for those of you that may be new to the Power Chat. Basically, what I do is I come on every week and I expound on various topics out of my books that I've written. Growing on Purpose, Next Level Living. These are books that I've written, tamikaford.com. And so what I do is I expound on different topics out of these books. And I bring wisdom nuggets. I share wisdom nuggets, insights, inspiration, motivation, encouragement, whatever it is that you may need that on that particular week. And so my hope and my prayer is that you leave the power chats inspired or motivated, encouraged, whatever it is that you need, maybe just spiritually revived. And so my prayer is that you leave the power chats with something. I'm here to add fuel to your fire, whatever journey that you may be on, whatever path that you're traveling. Maybe it's self-discovery, maybe it's purpose, your calling, maybe it's just personal growth and development, maybe it's working on your family, your marriage, your kids, your business, ministry, whatever your path, whatever journey that you're on. My hope and my prayer is that these power chats add fuel to your fire. That is the goal. And so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. The topic that I want to expound on today is the comparison trap. I want to talk about the comparison trap. Don't get caught or entangled in the comparison trap. Don't get caught and entangled in the comparison trap. Comparing is a complete waste of valuable and purposeful time. Comparing is a complete waste of valuable and purposeful time. When you find yourself secretly competing with someone, and people do it, they secretly compete. When you find yourself secretly competing with someone, comparing your life, your season, to the next person's life, to the next person's season, then you're caught in the comparison trap. And that's a trap that causes you to abandon who you are becoming. It causes you to abandon your path, to abandon your pursuit, to abandon your position. because you're no longer trying to become your best self. You're trying to become better than somebody else. You're not becoming your greatest self. You're becoming better than somebody else. And so you're caught in the trap. So it causes you to abandon who you are becoming, who you're striving to become, your calling, your purpose, what it is that you're supposed to do while you're here on earth. It causes you to abandon that. You're no longer pursuing your best self, because now when you're in a comparison trap, your pursuit is to become better than somebody else. That's the comparison trap. It's a distraction. It's a distraction that causes you to focus on something that doesn't matter. It pulls your attention away from what matters most. It's a distraction. It's a distraction that distracts you from becoming you. It distracts you from becoming you. It distracts you from doing what you have been assigned and purpose to do. It distracts you from developing your talents, from developing your abilities. It distracts you from refining and exercising your gifts, from mastering your craft. It distracts you from what it is that you need to be focused on in that season. It is a distraction. And we know distractions pull your attention away from what really needs to be what you really need to be focused on. It's a distraction. And when it pulls your attention away and distracts you from becoming you, when the comparison trap distracts you from becoming you and distracts you from developing your abilities and your talents and refining and exercising your gift, then what happens is you forfeit your destiny. You forfeit your destiny. You forfeit your purpose in life when you allow the comparison trap to become a distraction to you. So basically, you forfeit your mission in life. You forfeit your destiny. Every time you compete and compare, you're wasting that precious, valuable time that's better spent on your own growth, on your own development, on your own dreams and aspirations and visions in your vision in life. When you waste time doing that, that's time that's better spent on your own growth and development, on your own aspirations and your vision. Learn to compete with yourself, compete with your own potential, compete with what you can be versus with what you are. Compete with that. Compete with what you can do versus with what you're already doing. Compete with that. Compete with your potential. I'm trying to be better today than I were yesterday. That's what I'm competing with. I'm trying to reach higher this year than I did in the previous years. I'm trying to compete with that. Compete with your own potential. Compete with what you can be versus with what you are already are in the present moment. So compete with that. And if you're not careful, you'll become so obsessed with studying somebody else's life, studying somebody else's journey, studying somebody else's picture and their movements that you'll become discontented with your own life. You'll become discontented with yourself. Comparisons breed discontent. It produces discontentment. So you'll become discontented with who you are. You'll become discontented with your own life. And now you're questioning who you are. You're questioning your calling. You're questioning what your purpose and what you're supposed to be doing, all because of the comparison trap. So now you're doing things and becoming things that God never created you to be. The comparison trap. You're becoming things and doing things that God never created you to be. The comparison trap. So it breeds discontentment. It produces discontentment. And so you start to question yourself. You start to question what you have. You start to question your journey and your path and your call when you're caught in a comparison trap, trying to do what they do, but you don't have what they have. You don't have the same ingredients that they have. So you can't create what they create and make what they make because you don't have the ingredients to do that. You have the ingredients to make what you've been called to make, to create what you've been called to create. The comparison trap. So it takes you off course. It breeds discontentment. You become discontented with your course, with your journey, with your path. And you're trying to become something that God never created and destined you to become. So now you've neglected and abandoned who you are. You've abandoned your calling, all because of the comparison trap. Their life looks more attractive. Their life looks more exciting, but you don't know what's entailed in that. So you end up forfeiting your destiny. You forfeit your purpose. But my question is this: while you're busy becoming somebody else, or obsessed or studying somebody else's life, journey, gifts, and talents, who's becoming you? Who's busy becoming you? Because we need you. We don't need the fake you. We don't need the counterfeit you. We need the real you. We need you. So who's becoming you if you're becoming somebody else? If you're watching and studying and obsessing with somebody else and somebody else's life, who's becoming you? We need you in the earth realm. There's people connected and attached to you that need you. But if you're focused, comparing and competing, then you can't become you. We need you, not the counterfeit you. We need the real you, not an imitation or duplication of somebody else. We need the real you. So if you're busy competing and comparing, what about the people that are called to your life? What about the people that you're called to help, to call to transform, the people that you're called to make change in their lives? What about those people? If you're not becoming you, then you can't help the people that you've been called to help. So these people are missing out because you're no longer in position to do what it is that you've been called and created to do. So again, you're neglecting yourself. You're abandoning who you are by not becoming who you are. You're abandoning, dishonoring yourself, but not by not becoming yourself. You abandon yourself. There's people that are waiting on you. There's people that God has called you to. There's people that are attached to you, that are connected to you, that needs what you have. And if you're not in position, if you're not in pursuit on the path that has been ordained and commissioned for you, and you're in somebody else's picture, you're studying somebody else's life, then who's becoming you? Do you know when you compare yourself and your life to somebody else's, you are essentially saying, I am not enough. You're essentially saying, I am not enough. I don't have what it takes. I need more. God made a mistake when he made me. I don't have everything I need to do to become who I was created to become. I don't have everything I need. God didn't give me everything I need to fulfill my own purpose and calling. That I need to become somebody else. Essentially, when you compare, that's what you're saying. When you compare, that's what you're saying. That I don't have everything I need to become who God has created me to be. God made a mistake. He missed the mark. And we know that's a false narrative because God has given you everything you need to become you. In the word, it says you are a masterpiece, created in Christ to do good works. You're a masterpiece. You got everything you need in you to become who you need to be. The word says he will supply all your needs. So if he called you to it, if he ordained and commissioned you to do it, don't you think he's going to supply you with everything you need to get it done? You didn't call you, God called you. You didn't call you, God called you. So you have everything you need in you to become you. You have all the tools and the equipment you need to operate and function in your calling and your purpose. You don't need what somebody else has. You don't need their ingredients. You don't need to covet what they have because you have everything you need to create and make and build what you have been created to do, to build, to construct. You have everything you need. But if we're distracted and focused on somebody else's journey, on somebody else's picture, on somebody else's life, then we can't discover what we possess. You can't discover what God put in you. What's in you? You can't discover what God put in you. The God and the word says God will give you every good thing to do his will, that he will perfect those things that concern you. He will give you every good thing to do his will. There's a word that says when you turn to the right, you turn to the left. Your ears will hear a voice behind you saying, this is the way, now walk in. But how can you hear that that still small voice? How can you hear that inner voice? How can you hear that prompting that's leading you and guiding you if you're busy focusing on somebody else's journey? If you're studying somebody else's life and their seeds? How can you hear the way that you should go, the way that you need to walk? He will perfect those things that concern you. You have everything you need in you to become you. You don't need to compare. You don't need to compete. Because when you compare yourself, you're being unfair to yourself. We are not the same. We are not the same. When you compare yourself, you are being unfair to yourself because we are not the same. We have distinct and different, unique gifts, talents, skills, abilities. We have different journeys, different paths. You have a unique set of skills and abilities that are tailored just for you, that are customized just for you and your calling, that are customized just for you, what you've been ordained and commissioned to do. We have different and unique paths and abilities and skills and crafts. So when you compare yourself, you're being unfair to yourself and you're dishonoring yourself because you're saying, I'm not enough. I'm not enough. The word, and it's not wise. It's not wisdom. The word says when we compare ourselves and measure ourselves against one another, and we compare ourselves among ourselves, the word says we're not wise. The word says it's not wisdom. When we compare ourselves among ourselves, we're not wise. In other words, it's unwise to allow somebody else to become your goal, to become your target, to become your measuring stick. It's unwise to allow somebody else to become your goal, your measuring stick, because guess what? Now they become your standard. So you limit yourself, you limit your potential. You basically shortchange yourself when you compare yourself because they have become your standard. And people shouldn't determine how far you can go, how high you can go. They shouldn't determine what you can achieve and what you can accomplish. They shouldn't be able to determine your full potential. They shouldn't be able to do that. But the word of God says when we compare ourselves among ourselves and we measure ourselves among ourselves, the word says we're unwise because you've just made them your standard. You've just made them your goal and your measuring stick. And the word says we're unwise. God gives me the guidelines by which I live my life. His principles and purpose for me is the standard for me. His principles and purpose for me is the standard for me. So God gives me the guidelines by which I live my life. You are not my standard. So why would I compare and compete with you? The word said is unwise. Why? Because now what I'm doing is you become my goal, my ambition, my measuring stick. You become my target. So what happens when I get to your level? Then I can go no further. What happens when I get to where you are? Where do I go from there? If I've made you my goal, if I've made you my measuring stick, if I've made you my standard and my ambition, where can I go once I reach the height that you've reached? So now I only can go as far as you go. I can only rise as high as you rise. I've just limited myself. I've just limited my potential. You have now become my standard, my goal, my ambition, my measuring stick. And the word says that's unwise. God is the one, he's the standard. He's the one, his principles and purpose is the standard for me. It's the standard for you. The word says he knew the end from the beginning. He knew the end of my life at the beginning of my life. Why would I look to you when you didn't even create me? When he knew the end from the beginning, he predestined me. I got to walk it out. All I have to do is live it out and walk it out and discover it. But he predestined. I've been predestined to do something. He knew my end from the beginning. So why would I allow somebody else to become my standard when they didn't predestine me? They didn't create me. Why would I allow them to become my ambition, my goal, my measuring stick, my standard? It's unwise. That's why the word says it's unwise. God's principles and purpose and his word is the standard for you. So work on yourself, compete with yourself, recognize and maximize your own potential. Because if you don't, you're going to become discontented with who you are. You're going to become discontented with who God has created you to be. You're going to become discontented with yourself, and you're going to begin to question who you are, question who you are becoming. You're going to begin to question your path and your journey because comparison breeds discontentment. And so again, you're becoming something and doing something that God never created you to do. So nobody's becoming you. Nobody's doing you. And again, we don't need the false you. We don't need the counterfeit you. We need the real you on the earth realm. There's people that need you. So refuse to become distracted with somebody else's journey. Concentrate on your own and ask yourself this: am I doing the best I can with what I have? What God has put in me, what God has entrusted to me? Am I doing the best I can with the gifts, the talents, and ability that God has endowed me with? The things that he's entrusted to me, that he's put in me. Have I been a good steward over that? Am I doing the best I can with what I have? Is God getting a return on his investment? Because God has invested so much in me. He's given me so many gifts and talents and abilities. He's put so much in me. Is God getting a return on his investment? Or am I busy comparing and competing? Is he getting a return on his investment? Because if you're comparing and competing, I'm going to tell you this: you're not maximizing your life. You're not maximizing your potential. You're not maximizing your gifts, talents, and abilities if you're comparing and competing. So God is not getting a return on his investment. He's invested so much in you. Comparing and competing is a job. And if you're busy doing that job, how can you do the job of becoming you? How can you do the job of discovering you and what God put in you? What do you have? What has God put in you? What do you possess? Let's compete with that. I'm trying to be better this year. I'm trying to reach higher this year than I did in previous years. Compete with that. I'm trying to compete with what my potential. I'm trying to compete with what I can be versus with what I am. I'm trying to compete with what I can do versus with what I'm already doing. That's what we compete with, our potential. You don't want to be discontented with your journey. So maximize your life, maximize your gifts, talents, and abilities, maximize everything that God has put on the inside of you. Maximize that so that you can get to where you need to get to, so that you can complete every season that God has put forth for you and not compete with somebody else's life. No more studying, no more secretly competing, comparing, being unfair to yourself, dishonoring yourself by comparing. Because again, I told you, when you compare, you're essentially saying, I'm not enough. I don't have what it takes. I don't have everything I need to do what I need to do. God did. He made a mistake. He missed the mark when he created me. When I compete and compare, that's essentially what I'm saying, that I am not enough. And you are an original. You have everything you need, all the ingredients you need in you to do what you have been purposed and called to do. It's already in you. Everything you need to become you is in you. You don't need to compete. You don't need to compare. You can admire. You can compliment. You can collaborate. You can get wisdom from the next person. You can get tips, but we're not competing and comparing, because we're all originals and we all have a position and a place in the earth realm. And there's people that need you. They don't need to fake you, to fraud you, to counterfeit you. They need the real you. They need who God has created you to be. There's people that's waiting on you. There's people attached to you. There's people whose lives that you're supposed to change, that you're supposed to impact. There's people whose lives you're supposed to influence, and they're waiting on you. And if you're busy competing and comparing, if you're busy becoming something you weren't created to be, then those people are missing out because you're not in position. You're not in position. So we need to stay in position, stay in our path, and not look at the next person's picture. Only if we're admiring, maybe getting tips or wisdom, or to help or collaborate. But your path and your journey is an original. You have a distinct path, distinct abilities and gifts and talents. Discover everything that you have. What has God given you? Discover what you possess. What do you have on the inside of you? And I'm gonna tell you, it's a distraction, because that comparing stuff will distract you from focusing on what you need to be discovering in your own life, and getting the things done that you want, the goals and aspirations and the dreams that you have for yourself or your family. It's a distraction. It's a distraction. So anytime you see that distraction, call it for what it is. We all get distracted, but call it for what it is, and don't succumb to it. Don't give in to it. Call it for what it is. It's a distraction. You got your own journey, and it's unique and it's original. And we need the original you. We need the original. So maximize your life. Maximize your gifts, talents, and abilities. And don't compare and compete. Don't compare and compete, because it will make you depressed. You're comparing your chapter 5 to their chapter 15. You don't know what they've done to get where they at. You don't know what they've invested, the energy, the time, the seeds that they've sown. They have a special grace they need to do what they do, just like you have a grace that you need to do what you do. So you comparing your chapter 5 to their 15. Let's stay in our own picture. Let me stay in my own picture. Let me stay on my own path. Because I don't know the grace you need to do what you do. And if I try to do what you do, it may kill me. And if you try to do what I do, it may kill you, because you're not graced for it. So why would I compare and compete when you're not graced to do what I do, and I'm not graced to do what you do? So I'll compliment you, my sister, my brother. I'll compliment you. Maybe I'll get tips from you, give you tips, share wisdom with one another. Let's collaborate, whatever. But we will not compete and compare with one another, because we're all originals and we all have something to offer. We all have something to bring to the table. We all have something. Every one of us have something. If God created you and you made in the image of God, you have something to contribute. And the world is waiting on your contribution. The world is waiting on your contribution. So I'm going to pray for you. I'm going to go. That's all I have for you this afternoon. I hope this word blessed you. I really do. It's not a popular topic, but we got to talk about it because we're getting off track. We're not doing what we need to be doing what God has created and ordained us to do. How can we hear his voice? How can we hear that inner voice? How can we be led and guided if we're distracted? I told you that word says, it says, whether you turn to the right or to left, your ears will hear a voice behind you say, this is the way, now walk in. There's a voice that'll be telling you as you turn to the right or to the left. The word says there's a voice, your ear hear the voice saying, this is the way, now walk in. But if you can't hear that voice because you're distracted from comparing and competing, you can't hear that voice, you can't hear that prompting, you can't hear the Spirit of God instructing you and guiding you, then you miss it. You missing out. You missing out on your unique and creative journey. And you won't be able to hear what God is trying to tell you. And you won't be able to do the things that you need to be doing. And you may be missing your next level because you're watching their level. No more competing and comparing. We all have something to offer. We all have a contribution. I love you. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May his face shine upon you. May his grace and favor be upon your life. And may his peace be with you. I love you. And may God's grace forever be with you. I'll see you next week.